area yesterday, and the winter storm part of this event is starting to get itself lined up, and it will begin this evening and really be most impactful tomorrow morning is the timing on that. So thought we'd do a little kind of good news, bad news, or we'll call it good news and maybe not as good news is the way we're kind of do things. First of all, this is certainly setting itself up to possibly be a historic event. And when I say that, in my mind, if you're getting about 4 inches of snow, that would be enough to call this a historic event, because it starts to put it in the top 5 snowfalls of all time for the city of Houston. So that's kind of what I'm using to sort of justify the term of a historic snowfall. It's setting itself up as a possibility. And this includes even down to Galveston. We could be seeing some snow, which is a little bit even less likely to be seen than the city of Houston seeing it. And with all the warning that we've had on the winter precipitation that's expected, our leaders and our TxDOT has been able to get out and treat the roads, but we're still not going to do any traveling. But if it's absolutely necessary, they've had a chance to kind of get things a little bit prepped, and we'll have to see again how this unfolds when the winter precipitation really starts. So what's the maybe not as good news? Well, the ice is still certainly a possibility. While we're favoring more snow than ice, the ice has not been ruled out. There's going to certainly be some isolated patches of ice to be expected. Hopefully those don't find their way into your path, and that's something that's going to have to be dealt with. Now, also, we're still expecting even the coldest of the air to arrive Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. That's the hard freeze. And so that's when our concerns of our pipes, that they could be impacted the most. That is still a concern that's coming on Wednesday morning. And then whatever happens on Tuesday, I don't think there's really going to be, as far as the precipitation, whether it's snow, sleet, ice, I don't think there's going to be time, even with some clearing in the afternoon on Tuesday, to evaporate that and get it out of the way. If it liquefies, it's going to refreeze. And so those icy roads are certainly, whatever's out there on Tuesday could certainly be expected to still be around on Wednesday morning, to kind of still be a problem to deal with. So the winter storm warning officially begins today at 6 p.m. That runs until tomorrow at 6 p.m. And at this point, it is looking to be more snow than ice. But still, that's something that we want to wait and see how this unfolds. And right now, we're sticking with this 2 to 4 inches could be expected for all of us. Any of us could see easy 2 to 4 inches of snow. And then we're going to have these bands or these streaks where we'll have higher amounts. And I would think we could expect 6 to 7 inches in some of those areas that get a little bit more snow than the rest of us. And it will be, you know, it's one of these situations that's a lot like when we have thunderstorms that train along the same area and create flooding, you know, 2 or 3 streets over, but where you are, there's not flooding. That's sort of the situation with this snowfall. You could get a couple inches more of snow just a couple blocks away from where you are because of the way these kind of set up. Or maybe you get the extra snow and they don't get as much a couple blocks away. We've looked across the area today. We've mainly seen those clouds building in throughout the day. Eventually that's going to lead to that light rain. Probably a little bit of light rain is expected before we get into the frozen precipitation, whether it comes right as snow, or if it transitions from a sleet to a snow. That's, again, don't be surprised if there is actual liquid falling from the sky, rain a little bit later on this evening, getting into the overnight hours before the frozen precip starts. And it's been breezy today out of those east winds. Those winds are going to shift around to the north in the overnight, and those feels-like temperatures are going to continue to remain in the 20s and even in the teens for some of us. Here's where the thermometers are set right now. We've really been parked in the mid-30s because of the cloud cover. We haven't really fluctuated a whole lot from where we are right now. I know earlier as I was moving around my neighborhood and just running a couple quick little errands, that thermometer on the car there was stuck at 37 degrees, and we're still about 36 or 37 degrees for the Houston area right now. When you factor in the winds, it's feeling like the 20s, maybe even feeling in the 30s for a few of us, where those winds are just a little bit lighter, but still below freezing overall. So tomorrow morning, we're going to be very similar to what we saw this morning. morning as far as the temperatures are concerned, more or less in the 20s. Unless you're right along the coast, then you're in the lower 30s. So mid 20s is what we're going to look for when we look for those wake up temperatures for tomorrow morning. But we're going to have the precipitation that's also thrown in as well. The radar is clear right now. We've just been dealing with those very cool temperatures. And what we're going to see today, or what we've seen today, is this high pressure pushing in these winds from the north, or from the east to the northeast. And as this shifts around a little bit, that'll end up being more of a north wind tomorrow, funneling in even more cooler air by the time that we're setting ourselves up for that Wednesday morning, which I talked about still being the coldest of air. And you could see we've got negatives for our very northern parts of the country, and that colder air is still a surge, an extra surge of that colder air even coming on colder than where we are right now. So as we talked about, get ready for rain, light rain to begin this evening. Maybe it'll start as rain, maybe it'll start as sleet, but eventually we're expecting all of this to transition to snow in the overnight hours. And so tomorrow morning, you'll probably have some snowfall when you wake up, and then we'll continue to add on another inch or so overall. The freezing rain is still the biggest concern because of the probability that it disrupts any sort of travel. So we're planning tomorrow to not go anywhere. Just stay wherever you are tomorrow and not be trying to move around a whole lot, and then make sure that you are prepared for that hard freeze that arrives. So this is our futurecast in which it shows what the active radar would maybe look like. And so you'll see that different forms of precipitation as we move on. So as we move through the afternoon, some very light rain begins to impact. That's what these blues and greens represent, that very light rain at this point, all the way up until about midnight. And then things transition. When we get to the pink, that's that mix where we have a little bit of the ice thrown in, but also a little bit of a liquid, probably sleet more than anything else. And then eventually the blue comes in, and this is representing the snow. And you'll notice as we get to sunrise tomorrow morning, that's what is predominantly going to be out there. Plenty of snow possibilities, and we'll continue to see that clear as we move through the day. And then eventually we might even get a little bit of clear skies, but right before the sun sets, and then those clear skies lead to even colder conditions once we get into the morning. So I don't have a lot of time to really discuss the different types of precipitation, but I've talked about how that happens, or what we're expecting, and it's because these types of profiles in our atmosphere will continue to be something that's happening, where we're going to start with some warmer air that's still in place, where that frozen precipitation becomes rain, and then we kind of mix it in, but eventually it's so cold from the higher parts of our atmosphere to the lower parts that we're just dealing with snow only. So let's talk about that freezing rain component, which is what I would still consider to be the biggest concern. And you'll notice this is now even well south of downtown. For a long time, for the last couple of days, we've been talking about downtown and south. Well, now you can see the probabilities here have kept it even further to the south. So just our coastal counties, our southwest counties, are probably going to be dealing with the freezing rain, because you'll get the liquid precipitation, and then as soon as it hits a surface, whether that be the ground, a roadway, a bridge, a power line, or a tree limb, all that ice starts to collect. But it is expected to be a tenth of an inch or less, and that's going to be the good news, is that it's still enough to really mess up your roadways, but it doesn't add up enough to create as many problems as what that would do as far as our power lines and our trees and things like that. Snowfall expectations. By 2 a.m., we're looking for much of the Houston area to already see some snowfall. And then as we move through the rest of the morning around sunrise, we could have getting close to those 4 inches of snow. And then as we continue to move through the rest of the morning, by lunchtime, it does look like the falling snow will have maybe come to an end or starting to wrap up. But of course, whatever snow is on the ground, it's going to be around for a while. So if we get those 4 inches of snow or even 6 inches of snow, they're going to last through all day tomorrow, and that could be good news if you want to be playing in it, but it could also be bad news if it's trying to navigate or trying to move around. That's why we're not wanting a lot of moving around. So overall, the freezing temperatures are definitely going to happen. The freezing rain is going to happen, but only for isolated areas. That transition of sleet could certainly be possible, and then the snow, that's what we're certainly counting on for sure. So snow day tomorrow, that's going to be the good news. And again, I think for the majority of people, probably excited about the snow day, because everybody or a lot of folks are out of school, not going to be as concerned with trying to get anywhere. Hopefully you've made those plans to just kind of stay in place. Those very cold temperatures are still expected Tuesday night, and that Wednesday morning is the hard freeze, the coldest of the temperatures. Many of us in the teens on Wednesday morning, and then it really takes till Friday afternoon before we're going to really start to warm up a little bit. And you can see that here on Friday, we're finally back into the 50s. Now Thursday, I'm hopeful that we can get into the 40s with some sunshine, but we're still starting out again in the 20s. So that's going to be a very, very cold start overall. And then once we get into the weekend, those temperatures already bouncing back up to around 70 degrees by the time we get to the end of the weekend. So that's a much different pattern in just about 7 days than what we've been dealing with. But that's something that we'll kind of talk about a little bit later on. Make sure you're ready for that wintry precipitation to start tonight. We're not planning to go anywhere tomorrow. Very, very cold morning on Wednesday. Coming up, Fox 26 News at 5 p.m. will be here on our digital side of things. So I'll expect to see you back here about 5 p.m.